What did you want to talk about?
Okay, I just wanted to ask you, you had said yesterday to me, you didn't treat people well. Like there was a sense that you had of yourself before.
Yeah.
Where you really took for granted
Yeah, definitely.
relationships, and I don't know that your values were different back then, but the way you acted maybe didn't reflect the values you want to have or do have, but couldn't hold.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also think sometimes people with like borderline or mental health stuff will sort of, the world is against us or stigma or this or that, and they aren't accountable to their own bad behaviors, which is unfortunate because it can help a person move through and beyond.
Accountability is key.
But I wanted to hear a little bit about you.
I think
about that from you.
I don't want to say I was entitled, but there was almost this, I had been gliding through life. I mean, I was going through severe mental health episodes, right? But honestly, if I applied to a job, I got the job. It was just things like that. And then I know it doesn't seem like I was gliding, but in a way I was gliding through life. I even knew how lucky I was, but I don't know if I really appreciated it as much as I should have. And even with I didn't take him for granted, but I felt like I deserved his attention, and I didn't. And if I were him, I wouldn't talk to me either. I wouldn't. And he did the right thing by stop talking to me. Not only because it forced me to grow up, but because I was mean to him so many times. And my life wouldn't even be the way it is without him, because he taught me so much, and also kind of showed me the world, because he took me to Japan and I lived with him in Tokyo, and I'd been out of the country before, but that was an experience that not very many people get to have. And I'm not going to say that I felt entitled to it, but I knew that it was on my plate if I wanted it, and I went forward in that direction. And then I moved to New York and I had a job within a month, and I don't want to say I felt entitled to it, but maybe I did. I don't know. I know that life was a lot easier than it would have been for a lot of other people. And my dad, he shouldn't have allowed my mom to do all those awful things to me, so he was toxic by proxy, but he enabled a lot of my behaviors too. I'm not going to say I was spoiled, but because I don't think I was, but maybe to a certain extent I was. I don't know. But my mom was vicious, but he allowed me to get away with behaviors that, like, I would get in trouble and he would pay for stuff to get me out of trouble, stuff like that. Even I lived with a different family in my senior year. He paid for them to take care of me. I didn't, stuff like that. Other people, they just would have been, that would have been it. Then they would have been, I don't know what they would have done, but if they didn't have a home to go back to, they might have gotten to the Skid Row situation like I did, right? But they would have gotten into it at a much younger age. And instead, my dad paid another family to take care of me, and I didn't even know he paid them until I was moving out a year later, and then I found out that they had been paid to take care of me, and I was sort of hurt because I thought they were just my guardian angels and they had taken me in out of the bottom of their heart, things like that. And I guess I did feel entitled to a lot, and I felt like there was this one, this is why I say that narcissism and borderline personality disorder, there's a very fine line. If I felt threatened in any way, I would say things that weren't very nice, and it was because I was, my ego was being challenged. I remember once a lady at a vintage store wasn't very nice to me, and then I did a Yelp review and I said, my outfit costs more than your life. It's pretty bad. So the type of person who says that stuff is not necessarily a good person. I was trying to be a good person, and I think I was a good person, but if my fragile little ego was being imposed upon, then I would go in that direction, to where I would be mean and vicious and say a lot of cruel things that were terrible. And that's a different person than I am now, right? And I had to have the disability to where the way I look wasn't, you know, I thought that the way I looked had so much more to do with my value. And anybody, I'm just gonna say this, anybody who's watching this, I get that I'm not like gorgeous, okay? I was younger and I could get away with a lot more, okay?
Right, people are gonna say, she's not so hot. What does she think
exactly.
she is?
And they're right. But I was just
No,
like,
no, no, I got it.
I felt like I was hot shit. And I could wear heels. I can't wear heels anymore. I thought that, you know, I remember once when I was, and I'm not bragging, I'm just trying to make a point here. This was back when we could smoke in restaurants, and a waiter had told me to put my cigarette out, and I put it on the ground and extinguished it right in front of him in the restaurant. That's shitty. That's shitty. It's shitty. Like, it wasn't like I would behave that way all the time, but I did have those moments where I acted that way, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's shitty. And if someone were to act that way now, I wouldn't be mad at them because I'd know where they're coming from and how they're just an open wound. But I mean, it's hard not to judge, right? I mean, that's a shitty thing to do.
Well, you know, I think it's not the person you want to be.
No, and I don't even think it was the person I was then. I think that's the thing about personality disorders. It's, you know, on one hand, I'm this very empathetic, emotional person and very, very caring. And, you know, I had a problem with boundaries, so I was always giving. And then on the other hand, if someone threatens me or pushes that wound, then all of a sudden I'm a vicious bitch. But I had to go through hell to make sure that I won't ever be that person again. I don't think I would be, but anyway. Okay.